Hey everyone, I'm Abby with Spiceworks, and I'd like to welcome you to today's Spiceworks Partner Webinar, Disaster Recovery Across Many Locations, It's Possible, brought to you by Zerto. Before we get started, I wanted to let everyone know that the webinar will be recorded, so if you have to step away for any reason, you will get an email with the link to the video in about a week. Also, we want your questions, so be sure to log those into the question box on your screen during the presentation, and our presenters will try to get to as many as possible at the end of the presentation. So now that we have all the housekeeping done, I'd like to introduce you to our presenters today. We have Jennifer Gill, who is the Director of Product Marketing at Zerto, as well as Jayme Williams, who is the Senior Systems Engineer for Tincata. So Jennifer, whenever you're ready, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Abby, and thank you all for joining us today. Before I move on from the first slide, one thing I do like to point out is our awards. So you can see we've got Best of Show at VMware in 2011 and also the Gold Award for Business Continuity and Data Protection. And since then, we just keep on adding awards. Okay, so you can see our agenda for today. I'm going to introduce Jayme and give you a little bit of background on him. I'm sure what he does on a daily basis is going to sound very familiar to all of you. And he'll tell you a little bit about his company, Tincata, the environment, the challenges he saw with business continuity and disaster recovery, and then how he came to the conclusion that Zerto was the right solution for him. And then I'm going to take you through some of the features of Zerto Virtual Replication, and then we can talk about how you can learn more. So before we jump into the presentation, we do have a couple of poll questions for you. So we're always interested to see what the biggest challenges are with BCDR. Is it cost? Is it too complex? Is it difficult to manage? Is it hard to scale? Or is it that's not application aware? So we'd love to hear from everyone on the line what your key challenges are. And I'll give everyone a minute or so to answer that. And I'm sure many of you would like to say a couple of these, but try to pick your most important. Okay, so let's see the results. So cost and complexity and management, those are actually the top three that we have found as well. We have an infographic up on our website, and those are the top three for us too. So now I'd like to introduce everyone to Jayme Williams. As Abby mentioned, he's a Senior Systems Engineer at Tincata. He has 20 years of IT experience, including owning his own IT firm. So he's basically the complete IT department for many small businesses. And at Tincata, his key responsibilities include all management of VMware, host, storage, provisioning, deployment, maintenance, DR, backups, processes, and infrastructure. Some key applications here, Exchange and Citrix, and to make sure that they integrate disparate IT systems that have obtained through acquisitions. So one thing that's really interesting about Jayme's story is, he had kind of his initial sites, but then as they acquire new companies with different technologies, different storage platforms, he has to integrate them into their same IT processes. So Jayme, I am going to turn it over to you.
All right, thank you very much. As I've already said, my name is Jayme Williams. I'm a Senior Systems Engineer with Tincata, and I'm going to share with you today my experience with DR and Zerto. So a little bit about Tincata. We are a textiles technology company. It's Royal Tincata, which is a multinational company. And we develop solutions for products sold worldwide to protect people from arc fires, anything that would keep people from being burned or injured or things like that for this particular business entity. We also are into body armor, different composites, all sorts of different things that go out into the world that help with erosion, even battle dress uniforms for Marines and Army and theater. We have offices all around the world. We have operational companies spread around the world for production, sales, so it's a global operation. Around 4,500 employees. In the first half of this year, we've done about $683 million. My environment here is we are totally virtualized. I have maybe one or two physical servers running processes such as Veeam or something where I need some disk targets, but that's it for everything else. Our infrastructure from SQL to Exchange and SharePoint, Citrix, all of the applications you see supported here are running on virtual machines, VMware. It's everything from file servers, Server 2012, everything. I just saw the benefit and the ease of management and flexibility with VMware, so we started down that road, and now we are 100%. So we have a lot of locations around the globe. We replicate information between them using a number of different tools, from DRS to like SAN level replication. It's always a challenge managing these things and figuring out what machines are important and how to protect them. Right now, I started off with a 15-pack licenses for Zerto out of the box. So I'm protecting about 5 terabytes of information with Zerto right now. I have some locations that are in locations that they don't have a lot of choices for their ISP, so connectivity is a challenge. A majority of these are at like 3 megabits or bytes, so there's not a lot of choices. There's not fiber in a lot of these locations, so we have to deal with what we're given. So these are a few of the challenges that probably all of us face. The protection and availability of the environment is critical. What is critical is something you have to determine, because everybody that has a process that they are responsible for will say their stuff is critical. But any downtime of the things that you say this is the critical processes, whether it's ERP, email, whatever, since we are totally virtual, even our production floor system equipment is all running off of VMs. Industrial automation servers are virtual, so any downtime of those VMs is significant loss to us in production. So production can cease if we lose a VM. We also have some aggressive SLAs that we need to support, so we do guarantee these SLAs out to the opcos, and I'm trying to find the fastest and quickest RPO and RTO that we can translate that to a plant manager when he asks, how long is it going to take for us to be back up, rather than saying, I don't know, I'm looking for the tape. I can tell him now, how much downtime there is going to be involved and how quickly I can get a VM back up to him. It needs to be flexible and support different strategies, because we have to have fast changing reaction to, because the businesses, as fast as technology evolves now, the businesses evolve with them. So what's deemed important today, tomorrow becomes obsolete as something else comes in to replace it. And if it takes 3 or 4 weeks to implement that change to protect yourself again, then you've got a gap, you've got a window there where something could happen. Again, we have locations with limited bandwidth and not so great connectivity that we had to contend with. And the majority of our locations, there is no on-premise IT support. There is a gatekeeper who is deemed the person that knows more than anyone else that we contact, or they contact and come to us for help. But we have no IT staff at these remote locations. What we had developed is the Hit by a Bus book for DR, where we would take our yearly trek to a DR site, open that book up, and try and start recovering. So that means spinning machines up from tape, restoring AD, and making these applications available and functional. And this was always, I would say, like a demoralizing time, because you'd think you'd have it covered and you would prepare. and you would go and try and implement that, and you never could quite get there. And the other caveat about that is you knew when your scheduled disaster was, and you were prepared and doing things to get yourself ready. But in the real world, how are you going to do that if something happens? Our purchase process. So I was looking at SRM, the tool everybody's probably heard of, offered by VMware. I was looking at basically having to change the way I had things set up as far as storage, pretty lengthy engagement and learning and teaching and translating that into reality and getting it up and functioning. I mean, that was a lot of time taken away from what I was already trying to do, just the daily maintenance and finding ways to do things better. And it's just time that most of us don't have. So then our partner, VAR, said that they had been researching and found Zerto, and would I like to take a look at it. So I said, fine, anything that looks better, anything out there, send it my way. So he's a very proactive partner that gets this information to me. So we got on a phone call with Zerto, doing a proof of concept, and I had two engineers on the phone and myself doing a screen share. We got it installed. I have 2 data centers, so we had 2 instances installed, up and running in 30 minutes over the phone. Zerto also supplies a PDF paper for some proof of concepts for you to walk through, and it's not a very lengthy. It tells you exactly what to do, so it's not like the hit by a bus book. You can take a little bit of time and work through it, and it all works. And that's unusual even for a Microsoft white paper. I've never almost ever gotten a white paper that you go step 1, 2, 3, and it all works the way it says it does in the document. They demonstrated how to move the VMs, how to manage them. We had an incident here where I had my last physical file server that got a virus on it. That server was turned off, and it went to a virtual machine that I had been replicating the data to. But if I had had this solution in place, they have a feature that will be shown to you called journaling. I like to refer to it as a TiVo, because I could have rolled back that VM to a point in time in the past before it was infected, made it available to users, and gone on. It would have been a very helpful tool that Zerto has in their product to allow a lot faster recovery and make that shared data back available to the users in a matter of minutes instead of days. Why I chose to go with Zerto over SRM is simplicity. After the proof of concept, it was already installed, it was already functioning, everything was doing what it needed to do without any more engagement. I got rid of the encyclopedia on how to recover, and I took the PDF of the POC that Zerto supplied, and I cut and copied all of the stuff from my environment into that PDF, and it became the recovery book. So now it's sitting out on SharePoint and on some shared storage that anyone can look at and see the screenshots and hit a button to start recovering an application group or a VPG, and the rest of us can be en route to go to the war room and start doing other things. So it's not dependent on an encyclopedia and figuring out where I got to go to start the process to do something. It's instant recoverability. It's also virtually aware, so it's flexible in the storage. So it's able to see, replicate, and protect regardless of your storage. It doesn't care. Since it's running at the hypervisor level, I am replicating from direct attach, SAN, so all different scenarios are used or are able to be protected with this product. I don't have to have multiple products. I don't have to be managing multiple products to achieve one goal, which is to protect myself and the virtual infrastructure. My service levels, I had set to 10 minutes, but looking at them right now, I'm down to 4 to 7 seconds on RPO. And these are on VMs that I have protected in an Atlanta shared service center, VMs that are sitting in Camarillo, California, VMs that are sitting in Austin, Texas, VMs that are sitting in Canada. And I'm still getting these RPOs in those locations have, not a lot of bandwidth, but I'm still able to achieve these. I have also set up and used the testing, so it logs and keeps that information available for auditors. I can test right in front of them if they so chose. I can click the button, say test, they can watch the VMs fail over, and then I can provide the documentation that they can take back. So there's not a lot of effort even to tests and to set up reminders so that, last time I tested was 6 years ago. It doesn't happen to you. There's a reminder that will come and tell you that you need to test this. You set the system to remind you to do these things. So there's, I've already mentioned, it supports heterogeneous storage, so who cares what your storage is behind the scenes? It can protect me regardless. So I've got support for all the different sites that we have that we're responsible for, from California, Tennessee, Georgia, several, like I mentioned, in Canada, all managed from one interface within vCenter. There's also a web interface available. One really good use of this tool that I'm using it for right now is moving a legacy ERP system from California, which was on physical hardware that we P2V'd. Now I'm in process of moving that VM to the data center here in Atlanta. So I set that ERP system, that VM, up with Zerto. I am replicating it behind the scenes that no user is aware of what's going on. But when the time comes, all I got to do is click a move button. My VM is powered on, re-IP'd, and made available here in a data center. And the clients in California, they're none the wiser. And then I'm running an environment that I can control, and I can bring in all of these disparate systems and control and protect them in a data center rather than sitting out on some legacy hardware. It has a lot of comprehensive reporting in the tool. And if you're like where I work, your boss wants to know what's going on, some statistics, some numbers. How does it work? How is it working? Are we seeing what we thought we would see? And rather than take your time to create all these reports, email them, have them returned to you, ask to add another column and add this information, what I've done is simply published the web interface in our SharePoint portal, and now my boss can go and get all the reports he wants. So I've streamlined that process for me by making it available to him for reporting purposes, but not have to grant him access into vCenter where something could happen by accident. So it's a good way to allow them to get all the reports, everything that they want, the way they want it, and they can do it themselves and not have to depend on you, and free up a little bit more of your time to do the things that you're paid to do. So this is a big overview of our basic infrastructure. We have 2 data centers. We have a metro between the 2 data centers, and then we have a lot of remote sites sitting out there. These remote sites are anything from sales office to production facilities, and they all connect back to our data centers for all of these services that we are dishing out, whether it be SharePoint, Exchange, ERP, DFS shares on virtual file servers spread throughout the world. And what Zerto has allowed me to do is protect all of these single instance hosts out there with a number of guests on them, and I'm using the software to replicate those guests back into my data center. So if something were to happen to that facility, something were to happen to that guest, or something were to happen to that host, I can make it available and functional. And at the same time, when we come to fail back, I can move that VM back out to the remote site with the same ease and the same setup. There's a check button once you fail over to allow you to fail back in the future. So it's easy to go both ways. So recoverability is easy, even with multi-site configurations, all within one tool and one pane of glass. All right, I think that wraps up my presentation.
Okay, thanks, Jayme. So you can see why I really wanted you to hear from one of our customers, because Jayme tells a great story, and if I told you all these things, it might be a little hard to believe, but hearing it from Jayme, one of our fantastic customers who's using this product every day, you can see how easy it is. And one of the challenges that Jayme mentioned specifically is testing his BCDR plans. So the hit by the bus book, affectionately known as, can be challenging to run through that. So I was wondering for all of you, how often do you test your BCDR plan? So are you able to test weekly, monthly, annually? Or, I'm sure Jayme would like to say, am I supposed to test this with that hit by the bus book? But I'll give everyone a minute or so to answer that question. Just a few more seconds. I hope you get your answers in. Okay, let's see how everybody answered. So, 53%. I'm supposed to test this? Maybe. I guess it depends on the industry you're in, what your requirements are, but, DR testing can be very challenging, and with Zerto, you'll see how really easy that is. So, Jayme kind of described this really well, but I'm going to run through it really quickly because he had Site Recovery Manager, which does the kind of the orchestration and management of the disaster recovery process in terms of building VMs on the target site and coordinating things. But you also have a lot of coordination to do with the storage administrators as well, because the replication happens in the storage layer, so you have to get the actual data over to the other side. So you can see here it can be a really complex process. Jayme mentioned specifically you have to change the storage configuration. It takes away some of that flexibility. You have to take all the VMs that are part of whatever application that is and map it to that LUN. And then you cannot change where those VMs are in the environment. Otherwise, you break the relationship and you break protection and you're exposed. So it's really complex, it's manual, and it takes away all that wonderful flexibility of VMware. You bought VMware so that you can move a VM really easy. So you could do a migration in minutes versus weeks. But when you're using physical replication, it doesn't really fit well into that strategy. So with Zerto, we take away all of those really complex steps and simplify it to just a few. You just need to, you still have to talk to the storage team. You have to ask them, hey, do I have enough storage on the target site? This is what I'm looking to replicate. Just locate all the VMs that are part of the application. In this case, we picked a CRM. And you'll configure the VPG, and we'll talk about what that is in a couple of slides. And then that's it. It's really simple. And now you're replicating, and you can run a test, whenever you need to. So with that, we have Zerto Virtual Replication. So virtual aware. What do I mean by that? We replicate VMs and VMDK. As you've heard Jayme and myself both mention, the storage is not important. LUNs, volumes, whatever it is you're doing, it's completely unrelated to the Zerto virtual replication process. It's a software-only solution, so there are no hardware appliances or hardware boxes or anything that you're dropping into the environment. Because once you have that physical appliance, with 5 ESX hosts attached, maybe it works great. But what about when you go to 15 or 20? And then do you want to add another physical box in the environment? Because now you're trying to scale, but now you have another point of management that's really adding to the complexity once again. It's built to protect your production applications. You saw Jayme's using it for SharePoint Exchange and his ERP systems. So the very aggressive service levels, the consistency groups. In the journal, Jayme calls it TiVo. It's kind of funny that he calls it that because Shannon and I started calling that in our webinars as well. And it really gives a good one-word explanation of what it is. It's just a recording of everything that's happened in your environment. So we deliver those enterprise-class features that you need for your production environments. So let's take a quick look at the architecture. So here's a very simple overview. I say simple because we have 2 sites, and as you saw with Jayme, you can have multiple sites. And there are 2 components of the software, the Zerto Virtual Manager and the Zerto Virtual Replication Appliance. The Virtual Manager is the only piece of software that you'll touch. As you saw in the animation, it pushes out the Virtual Replication Appliances to the ESX hosts within the environment. There's one Virtual Replication Appliance installed on each host. And I want to stress that it's an appliance and not an agent. It doesn't require ongoing management, care and feeding. The Zerto Virtual Manager will manage all of that for you. And you can see it's a plugin right into vCenter server. And as Jayme mentioned, we also introduced a web interface so that you can give access to a manager who just needs to get reports and maybe you don't want to give vCenter access to. So we can replicate from anything to anything. You can see we have all different storage brands in our environments. We already talked about it being a software-only solution. It's very scalable. It's continuous block level replication, so that's what gives you those really, really low service levels. So it's not synchronous. We call it near synchronous replication, but very, very close. You know, you're losing seconds of data. And then the TiVo. So at the replication site, we have a journal. So that's 1 hour, up to 5 days worth of data tied to an application. So say you did an upgrade this morning at 9 o'clock and it didn't go very well. So you could look in the journal and fail back to 8:59 and 48 seconds, roll back the environment, and now you've completely undone the upgrade, and now you can investigate, see what went wrong, rather than having to, back out of an upgrade process, which can be challenging. And then for networking, we have some bandwidth optimization. We do compression and throttling and things like that because we want to make sure that replication isn't dominating the environment. This is your production environment. These applications are being used by end users to generate revenue, and we don't want to impact their performance in any way. So we also do support for remote and branch offices. So for example, I'm located here in Boston. Waltham is about 15 miles away, and although physically separated from a logical perspective, they might be within the same vCenter instance. But at that Waltham center, they're probably still doing some sort of, they have applications there that need to be protected. So with Zerto, we can enable replication within the vCenter, and you can ensure that those sites are protected. So Jayme and I both mentioned this, the consistency groups. So we call those virtual protection groups. So many applications, especially production applications, have a couple of VMs that are associated with them. So the database server, you might have a couple of application servers, a web server. So you can take those VMs and put them together in one group. And no matter where they are in the environment, they will be protected in exactly the same way, even if they're on different different ESX hosts, so HP, Dell kind of servers, different storage, Dell or NetApp. No matter where they are in the environment, they will be protected in the exact same way. So this delivers write order fidelity across the VMs so that you can in fact recover, and also enables you to use those neat flexible features of VMware, vMotion, storage vMotion, vApps. If you're using vApps, you can support those as well. And we already talked about the journal, and also we have support for VSS and also Oracle Hot Backup Mode if you want to add in additional checkpoints. So we've talked a lot about the data associated with an application. So grouping the VMs together, grouping the VMs together, getting the data to the replication site, that kind of thing. But then the other part is, okay, so now how are we going to manage this whole process to get everything to work? And with Zerto, we've automated as much as we possibly can. Because especially when you're in kind of a disaster situation, you have people calling you and yelling at you and saying, where's the application? I can't get to this. And that's not the time that you want to be typing in a bunch of commands. So we've automated the process for you. So data goes over to your target site and it's sitting over at the replication site waiting. Once you fail over, we begin to build the VMs associated with that application, fully automated. We don't have shadow VMs at the target site. We build the VMs. But as part of your virtual protection group, you've set up things like boot order. Database server first, then application server, then web server. Any re-IPing that needs to happen is automated, and that will happen. So that's how we're able to get RTOs of seconds. RTOs of minutes. RPOs of seconds, RTOs of minutes. The click to test anytime. So again, because we automate the re-IP, you can test over to a test network. So a network that's kind of segregated from everything else. You can also bring up the test environment to a previous point in time. As Jayme mentioned, testing is a lot easier for him now, and he can execute it from the site where he is at, because at some of those peripheral sites he may not have IT expertise. And then offsite cloning. So you have all that data sitting out at your replication site. Why not make it useful? So instead of taking a backup off of your production environment, create a clone at the target site and take a backup off there. Minimize the impact to your production applications. And you can also use it for test and development, and now you're doing it with an actual copy of the environment. And Jayme talked about this as well, so this is web-based management, so you can access it from a tablet. So no vSphere client is required. The tabs for easy access, so kind of hard to see right now, but there's a tab for VPGs and other things like that, so you can tab through the functionality of the product. And then, I don't know if you can see it, way down at the bottom right-hand corner, that's an arrow, and that enables you to fail over live or fail over for test. So reporting is so important. Internal auditors, even if you're not in an industry that's highly regulated, like financial industry or healthcare, within your own corporate policies, most likely you have some sort of audit requirements that you need to pass. With Zerto, we have a report that details each step in the disaster recovery process, and that gives you, one, confidence of what the RTO will be. You'll see what each step is in the process, how long it takes to execute. So you'll know, for example, that it takes 2 minutes and 43 seconds to recover a SharePoint. And this is a report that you can print and give to the auditors within your company. We also have detailed resource reports, so you can see what the resources are consumed at the production site and the target site. So you can, if you do chargeback, for example, I don't know if you have like an internal IT group, or you do chargeback to marketing or chargeback to another group, that lets you see how things are being used. Also, you can use it for planning. So what other IT purchases do you need to make? Do you need more storage, servers, etc.? So, and then here again you can see what the resources were consumed, and this is more for internal chargeback, but also can be helpful planning additional hardware requirements. So we've talked a lot about private cloud BCDR. So if you have everything under your control and you want to do DR between your sites, just like Jayme, certainly we would support that initiative, and we have a really great solution to support that. If you are interested in trying out the cloud, disaster recovery as a service is a great way to kind of dip your toe in. Hopefully you're not having a disaster that often. This is a once-in-a-while kind of occurrence. But with Zerto, we have a broad network of cloud service providers who'd love to work with you if you'd like to try that out. And then for other applications, maybe they're just a real headache. They are difficult to manage. Someone that we work with here, he calls them cranky. They just require a lot of hands-on. Give that to the cloud provider altogether. Let them deal with the cranky applications. And then we would do in-cloud business continuity and disaster recovery. So we're really built for the public cloud, the private cloud, or your hybrid cloud. We have one last question for you. So if you'd like us to follow up with you, how would you like us to do that? So we have a lot of white papers which can provide you a little bit more detail. This installs really quickly. I mean, you heard Jayme talk about, it was one of the first sets of instructions he got. He ran through and it worked. So the product installs in about 30 minutes, and then you'll do another 30 minutes of knowledge transfer with the person supporting you. And after that, you will be up and running. We'd love to show you the product, schedule a demo, and then we have some data sheets and case studies. All right. And then in closing, we really think we have a new approach to disaster recovery. So it's truly virtual aware. You've made this investment in VMware. You've made this investment in a hypervisor. Don't undermine it by trying to introduce and force-fitting physical processes into that virtualization strategy. Built for production applications, you heard Jayme, Exchange, SharePoint, ERP, simple scalable software, simple business continuity disaster recovery, and we're ready for the cloud. So if you'd like to contact any of us, so Jayme Williams, he is with Tenkata, he's a senior systems engineer. Certainly feel free to contact myself. My name is Jennifer Gill, the Director of Product Marketing. And we can introduce our stealth presenter. So Shannon Snowden is our Senior Technical Marketing Architect. He's been sitting here quietly. If you ask any questions that are too technical for myself to answer or Jayme to answer, you will hear from him as well. So I did see that we had a couple of questions. And so Shannon, I think that this first one is for you. What does Zerto communicate directly with on VMware? Is it the ESXi host, the vCenter, etc.? And can it replicate from to vCloud Director?
Yes, is the answer for all of that. As Jen showed in the architecture slides, that we have a Zerto Virtual Manager that talks to the vCenter. We have virtual replication appliances that are installed on the host. And then as part of our deep integration into the VMware stack, we also integrate with vCloud Director. So if you have org VDC set up at a vCloud site, an instance, we can run our test, do our failovers, complete operations to and from vCloud Director.
Okay, great. And someone asked if we can get a copy of the slides or contact information. So the contact information is up there for you. And then as Abby mentioned, we are recording this. So this will be available online, I think she said, in about a week, which is perfect. If you need further information around Zerto, certainly, their emails are right up there. Send me an email directly. It's jennifer@zerto.com, and I'd be happy to provide you with a few more specifics. So a question that we get quite often is, how is Zerto priced? So people wonder, do they have to buy the Zerto Virtual Manager? Do they have to buy each virtual replication appliance? And the answer to all that is no. Zerto is priced on a per VM basis. So if you're protecting, say, 30 VMs in your environment, then you will pay for a 30 VM license. If you have 100 VMs in your environment, but you only want to protect 30, you still just pay for the 30 virtual machines that you are protecting. So I'll give it another minute in case someone is a slow typer. So Shannon, a question came in. For the Zerto Virtual Replication appliances, what are the requirements there?
Well, they're very low overhead appliances. You can select whether you want 2 or 3 gig of RAM for the appliance, and then I think our default is like 12 gig of space. So they're very modest requirements for little virtual replication appliance.
Okay, great. And then a question that we get often is, is anything built into the product that assists with bandwidth requirements for replication. And we do actually have a tool that we use to help you size your bandwidth requirements. Rate of change and things like that can vary across many applications. So we have a tool which will collect some, standard metrics you have to collect the standard metrics from vCenter. We put them in the tool, and then we can help you determine what your bandwidth requirements are.
One thing we hear quite often, and even I think Jayme mentioned, the efficiency we have with bandwidth, even with lower bandwidth, in the still achieving a low RPO with bandwidth challenged situations.
Yes, even the initial seed compared to the VMware virtual replication tool or appliance that they had. I tried to seed the same ERP system that I'm moving, and it took 3 weeks, and I had no insight into what was going on with that tool. It just gave me a green check, and I didn't know what was going on. It didn't give me a percentage. With Zerto, the seed, I started new because I didn't know the state of the seed from when I tried using VMware's tool. I started from a new. It took probably about 6 hours to do the initial seed. Now I'm at 4 seconds RPO over that 3 meg pipe from California to Atlanta, coast to coast.
That's amazing.
Yep.
And Jayme, one thing, because you mentioned that it being problematic for you not being able to see the initial seed, were you able to see the progress on the Zerto with the initial seed?
Absolutely, by percentage, what's going on. So you can tell something is happening rather than sitting there and wondering, is it doing anything? Then instead of watching the VMDK, is it getting larger or the time date stamps changing on the thing? It was amazing to me that there wasn't something in their tool set that said something is happening. So I just sat there and watched it and the Zerto tab, and the next day I'm good to go.
That doesn't make for such exciting television, does it?
No. And then it also doesn't make for when your boss asks you, how do you feel? Can we fail that over? And you're like, it's got a green check.
All right, Shannon, we have one last question, and I think it's going to be for you. Is there any limitation of the software, so any special infrastructure requirements? What are the infrastructure requirements for Zerto?
We blend in so seamlessly with the VMware environment from a hosting standpoint that, and that's on purpose. We try to be very intuitive and native to a VMware administrator. And so really, from a functionality standpoint, the install and the administration is very much deploying appliances and installing our manager on a Windows machine that installs very much like vCenter itself. And then the connectivity between the sites, you establish that and pair the sites and then start creating those virtual protection groups. And as Jayme said, watch the percentage of it being replicated, and then you're able to fail over, fail back pretty quickly.
Okay, great. So, Jayme, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, people love hearing from our customers. We have such great customers. We're so fortunate at Zerto that everyone is willing to tell their story. And then, Shannon, thank you for taking the tough questions. And Abby, I think we are all set.
Great. Thanks, Jennifer, and thanks to everybody for attending today. Just wanted to remind you all that you will get an email within the week to the recording of this webinar, so definitely be on the lookout for that. And I think there was a question that came through about emailing some contact information, so I will definitely put some of these email addresses in that follow-up email as well. With that, just want to say thanks and hope everyone has a great rest of the afternoon. Looking forward to seeing you on future webinars.